Okay, folks, we need to talk about Chris D'Elia because his career is over. It's all coming out this week. ABC is doing a story on Chris D'Elia and his many secrets. Now, as you know, Chris D'Elia has many controversies that people cover, but there's a whole secret, disgusting backstory that I've found here. Now, most people know that Chris D'Elia's dad was a big studio guy. He's a high up exec. So Chris D'Elia lived a life on set. He lived a life of privilege, a life of nepotism, and being involved in Hollywood since he was a baby. And so here's where it gets interesting. The big show his father was the showrunner for was the show Boy Meets World. Big 90s hit, a big TGIF Fridays kids show. And if you'll pay close attention and look back and see, the character Eric Matthews shares a lot of similar traits to Chris D'Elia. Now, in an interview, Chris explains that his father wanted to give him the role of Eric Matthews, but he didn't act at that time. He didn't have the power to do so. He couldn't usurp the casting directors who had given, who were looking at kids who have been acting for years. Chris D'Elia, this was his first gig. So Chris does not get the role as Eric Matthews. But if you look at that character, you'll see Chris D'Elia has based his entire life on that character. Chris D'Elia is copying forever Eric Matthews. He's trying to be this character on the show that was so successful that he didn't get to be. So just go back any random episode of Boy Meets World, scroll to the part where there's Eric Matthews, the older brother, the comic relief, and you'll see Chris D'Elia is taking his entire personality, his entire concept of comedy is coming from one guy. And that one guy, poor Will Friedle, the actor, who didn't want to be involved in any of this mess, has a restraining order against Chris D'Elia because Chris D'Elia, at one point in the early 2000s, got into a physical altercation with Will Friedle and broke his jaw. That's right, there's literally police reports that show that Chris D'Elia attacked, assaulted, and brutally injured Will Friedle, the actor, who, again, completely innocent, just cast in this role, has no idea that there's this psychopath who's fighting for his father's love by trying to be the character of Eric Matthews, and he feels like he was stripped of that. So after Chris D'Elia does this absurd and horrific assault on this young actor, Will Friedle, Chris disappears for a long time. No one hears about him for a while. Until about 10 years later, he pops up as the second lead on the show, Whitney, which is, as we all know, Whitney Cummings had a TV show and Chris D'Elia was the second lead. What you might not know about that is that Chris D'Elia's father was the showrunner for Whitney, and that is the only reason Chris was cast. Because again, Chris is not a known actor. Chris has had very few gigs up until this point, but all of a sudden he is cast as the second lead with zero experience. What do you know? Nepotism at work. His dad finally had the power to put his son in a role. So Chris is given this amazing opportunity to be on a TV show. He now gets to be famous, what he's always wanted, what he believes he deserves, and he blows it. Because on this show, Chris D'Elia won't stop acting like Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World. They don't want him to play this character. It's very clear that he's ripping off this very specific character, and the writers of the show, everyone on the show, including his father, begged him to drop it. Stop pretending to be Will Friedle's character. You're not the guy from Boy Meets World. And you're funny. You can do this on your own. You don't have to rely on that as a crutch. Unfortunately, Chris D'Elia's entire personality is based on this character on Boy Meets World. So he really didn't see a way to not act like that, And so eventually the show gets completely panned and called out for specifically that reason. Every single critic pointed to Chris D'Elia and said, wow, I wonder if this guy likes Boy Meets World. And it wasn't long before people put the dots together and realized, oh, he's actually connected to Boy Meets World because his father was the showrunner. So after his show crashed because he wouldn't drop the shtick, he starts claiming he's a stand-up comedian, and that's because Whitney Cummings at that point was doing stand-up comedy. So he starts to try to parlay his world over there, and he says, oh no, I guess I'm a stand-up comic. That's why I fail at everything. That's why my life's a mess. I'm just a stand-up. It's just how we are. It's our tribe. And there's actually been a lot of losers who have believed they were stand-up comedians because they were either addicted to something or sexual criminals, but it's not true. Just being a bad person, it doesn't inherently make you a comedian. I think it's also a good time to point out that Chris does have an actual mental condition called Union's syndrome. I believe it's pronounced Union syndrome. And it makes him prone to young people's fashion and trends. It basically means it's like his mind isn't aging appropriately at the right level. So because of his diagnosis with Union syndrome, he cannot be convicted for any sexual crime on a child of any type because allegedly, legally speaking, his mind remains at 16. He gets to claim for the rest of his life. So the law cannot prosecute him because of his Union syndrome. He's literally immune to any crime there is, which obviously has led to him committing almost every crime there is. And he's also known as a big-time huckster. He went on Soft White Underbelly trying to promote some anxiety pills that were clearly just speed. And he's always disappearing and then coming back with a new product. He was featured on Shark Tank. I mean, I cannot count how many times he's tried to pitch an idea to them. And they let him on because he's at that point he'd become pretty famous. But these are real inventions of his. He's really a huckster trying to sell skin creams and a hair perming kit he was selling for a while. Like his face was on the cover of, and even though his hair isn't permed, but it doesn't make sense. Like, he will lend his face to any product and he will claim it works. And he's usually, hawking some kind of drug to the kids. I mean, in fact, the reason Spice came onto the market and kids like to smoke Spice are any of these weird gas station bath salt type technically legal drugs. Crystalia is the one who actually popularized this, because Crystalia realized that kids in the suburbs can't get their hands on weed, so he's not going to talk about that type of drug in his stand-up. He's going to talk about stuff you can get your hands on. He wants it to be relatable. So even though Chris has probably never done bath salts, that was like his main bit for a long time, was why you should try bath salts. So that literally helped boost that market and has killed potentially millions of people at this point. So Chris was pushing these weird drugs. He's always pushing drugs. He's just trying to get you to buy something. And every time you see him, you want to make fun of him because he's wearing these weird, strange, young person clothes. Right now, he's in an era where he's wearing the comically oversized shirts, and it looks crazy on him. But again, he thinks he's 16, or so medically speaking, he's allowed to claim. And so he doesn't look dumb. Okay, he actually looks very cool. If he is indeed the age he thinks he is, he looks incredibly cool. So that we cannot hold against him. But what we can hold against him is his most recent allegations with his best buddy, Zachary Quinto. Those two disgusting freaks have just been outed by their exes. I guess they're in some type of throuple scenario with someone, but this woman alleges that they used to make her eat their poop. And that, I know that is absurd and disgusting, but this is the kind of sick Hollywood power play that these kind of guys do. So allegedly, Crystalia and Zachary Quinto would, I guess, poop into some kind of bucket, and then they would take a spoon and mash it together to make sure it was completely mixed equally. That's what this woman said. You'd think, I don't know why that matters, but she said they would make sure it was mixed equally, and that she had to eat a bite every day that she spent the night over there. And she would do it. She did this for months because these big celebrities, they both wanted to date her. But the price was you have to eat some of our poop. And that's insane. And it's crazy that it seems like everyone that I cover, at some point, they get outed as making people eat their poop, which is, otherworldly, disgusting, disrespectful, evil. Who can even fathom why you'd want that? How that could turn Crystalia on and Zachary Quinto, I don't know. But this is the kind of stuff they do in Hollywood. This is the kind of stuff Bobby Lee and Tony Hinchcliffe and Crystalia, this is the kind of stuff they're up to. They're all making people eat their poop for some reason. But when the ABC drops this story, I think Crystalia is about to go back into hiding. Because, last time he got called out on some stuff, he was hiding for a while. This time, it's going to be worse, okay? This is very odd behavior. And I think that most people didn't even know he was in a bisexual relationship with Zachary Quinto. And that's the least weird part about it, honestly. Making someone eat your poop is the weirdest part. Let's get real here, okay, guys? Crystalia, you're a total bitch. All right, that's it for Crystalia. You guys let me know who you want me to cover next time. As always, we have the information you need. Absolutely no one else does. They give you some information. Yeah, you hear the same shit repeated over and over again by these stupid commentators. Well, guess what? We have new information. We have new news that no one else has. So let me know who you want to know the truth about.